Okay, so just going into some of the specs of this switch. It is a PC top, PA housing, bottom housing, and then a palm stem. And it has a 55 gram bottom out with a 3.3mm total travel. So it also comes with factory lubing. So a very short travel, and this should make it lean more towards that clacky sort of range. I feel either a deep clack or like a mid clack in my opinion. So let's test out the sound and see where I think it falls. Okay, so moving into the stock versus loop test. So these three keys are stock, loop. Yeah. So what are my thoughts on stock versus loop? I feel like these switches really need to be looped because stock, they sound very pingy, and there's some sort of like graininess to them that I just don't like. And the worst part is, as I mentioned, there's some sort of spring metal sort of sound. I think it's the spring. It's very obvious here. There's some sort of spring sort of crunch. If it's not that, then it's the contact leaves. So I would recommend lubing this. Like, I highly recommend lubing this, at least to get rid of that metallic sound. But even then, lubing helps to make it a bit deeper. So if you can compare it, it helps to make it a bit deeper, and it sort of reduces that graininess from this switch. There's no loop on the spring at all. For the bottom housing, there's just a very light amount of loop on the railings, not on the contact points. So not on the metal contact points, but on the railings on the side. And on the stem, they just have a very light lubing on the rails. Not even on the entire rail points, but these rails that are protruding out. Yeah, so honestly, this switch really needs hand lubing. I don't recommend this switch for you to pick up unless you're trying to do that, because there are better switches, more consistent switches out there that cost at this price or less. So this is a hard pass for me. Okay, so what are sort of the sound notes that I hear from this switch, and then I'll move into my conclusion. So at stock, which is I think what we need to start grading switches on, stock performance, it's very thin, grainy, and has a very plasticky sort of sound in a foamless board. And what makes things worse is it has a metallic sound. I believe it's spring crunch. It could also be the metal contact for the leaves that is causing this sort of spring crunch metallic sound. So it really needs to be lubed to get rid of that. And even then, it still sounds thin. And these are sort of the tones that you will hear if you go on a foamless build. So grainy, thin, and it's more of a mid-tone switch. So if you were to loop this, it would sit comfortably in the mid-clack sort of region. So not as high pitch as like a hyperclack, like a Cthulhu, and not as deep low pitch as like a, let's say like a HMX hibiscus. So it sits comfortably in that mid-clack zone. However, because it has so much issue stock, I can't really recommend this for clacky builds. For talky builds, it also doesn't sit well because it is a mid-tone switch. So a lot of people are looking for deep sounding switches. This is not the one. So on a foamy board, it does hide the spring crunch and the plastic notes well, but it's not deep enough for me to recommend it for talky builds either. And in terms of like sound, right, decibel, it's about like 62, 63 decibels. So it's not really a silent switch. It's more like a conversation sort of noise switch. But honestly, the milky yellows are softer than this, and ready-made silent switches are more silent than this. So it doesn't really have a home, I would say, for this switch. Okay, so looking into the stem wobble, because this is a box stem, there's not a lot of stem wobble. So north-south, almost none. East to west, slight, but to be frank, that's a rounding error at this point. Also, I would say none. So box stems have very nice stem tolerances. So you can see it's very, very tight. So really nice stem tolerances. But I think that goes with for any sort of box stem. Alright, so looking at the RGB test, I have it on my caps lock here, just a single key. So I've chosen white light, but there's a little bit of yellow hue, which is to be expected since this is a translucent yellow housing. So you will have that sort of yellow hue effect. So unless you're going for like a yellow sort of effect, then that's fine. But if you're going for any sort of RGB, I don't think this is the best switch for that. Overall, my thoughts, given that it's for RM1 a piece, or about 25, you can get it 20 to 25 US cents a piece, I can't recommend these switches. They are too bad stock, and even if you fully loop them, I feel like your time can be better spent elsewhere. Specifically for like a mid-clack sort of budget switch, I think you should just get the HMX T-Rex, which I will be reviewing in 1 or 2 weeks over this. You don't have to loop them. It sounds great out of the box, and there's no plastic or metallic notes on the switch. So honestly, in 2026, this is a hard pass for me. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this review, and let me know how it goes and how I can improve on this, what to add and what to trim. And until next time, peace.